Marcia Moran, welcome to the Conquering Everest podcast.
Well, hello. How are you doing today, Brian?
I'm doing well. Looking forward to getting into your story a little bit. I did have an opportunity to read a bit of your book, and I really like how the book is structured
Thank you.
with different viewpoints. But for the audience, since they haven't had a chance to see your book yet or get to know you, why don't we take a second, if you don't mind, and just introduce yourself to everyone?
Well, I'm Marcia Moran, and I am a stroke survivor. So I had my stroke 7 years ago, and I didn't believe I could get back to normal, but I am almost 95% better.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The story of when it happened though is terrifying, and
Yeah.
and I was terrified just reading about it. So how about we start there and maybe just share your story about the day that that you've had the stroke.
Okay. So it was Sunday morning, and I woke up and I felt odd. So I texted my friend Rochelle to tell her that I wouldn't make breakfast, and I couldn't read the text. So I said, I'll just text her later. And I put my phone down. I rolled over, and bam, I got the worst headache imaginable. And despite the pain, I fell asleep. The next time I woke up, I knew I was in real trouble because my right side was completely limp.
Mm.
And so I figured I had to get out of bed to get help. So I fell off onto the floor, and I dragged myself across the carpet and made it to the door, which was closed. And so I don't know how many times I tried because I was kind of stuck to the floor.
Yeah.
But I finally snuck it open and had to take a break because I was so tired. And finally, I had enough gumption to crawl down the hall, and I ran out of gas completely. And I don't know what fell, but something went crash, and my husband came up and found me.
Mm. And it was your entire side, right side was
So
no feeling in your legs, arms, anything.
Yep, nothing.
And your husband was downstairs. I'm trying to remember if it was. It wasn't morning though, was it? It was.
Yeah, it was morning.
Oh, what?
So,
Okay,
yeah.
so he's downstairs, kind of getting his day started. He hears the bang. Originally, I think he hears you fall out. Your book says he heard you fall out of bed, but he just thought it was you getting up and kind of getting going.
Yep.
And then the second crash, he came to check on you. Do you remember how long it took you? It was between the time,
No.
And so when he finds you, I imagine 911 was called, and then starts your journey of figuring out what's going on and all that good stuff. So what was kind of all that like after once the ambulance got there?
So we didn't know I was having a stroke
Right.
until the paramedics said, "Oh, when did the stroke happen?"
Mm.
And Jim was floored, and I think I was probably confused.
Yeah.
But they loaded me up into the ambulance, and I remember them talking about whether or not they were going to go to our main hospital or one that was 6 miles away, farther than the hospital. And they chose farther hospital because they actually have a stroke capacity.
Mm.
And then I was unconscious. So the next time I woke up, I was in the hospital. I was dressed in a hospital gown. I had a needle in my arm, and that's a big thing because I was afraid of needles.
Okay.
I'm not afraid of needles anymore because I've been so poked so many times.
Yeah.
But my husband was there, and because he was there, I said, "Okay, everything's gonna be fine." Well, guess fine is a relative term.
Right.
So, go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish and
So the first night I was in the hospital, they took me for a walk around the nurses' station. So a physical therapist put a belt on me that was probably about 3 inches wide, and she held me up. And I will tell you, I didn't walk. I clomped around like I was Igor and Young Frankenstein.
mm. Did you have some at least sensation back at that time, or was it still completely wow?
um, I might have had some sensation, but if I did, there wasn't much.
Right.
But I could at least clamp my foot. And she got me back to the bed, and I went back to sleep right away. You know,
Mm. Takes that much out of you, I guess, just trying to do something you're not used to doing.
right?
And in a stroke, when that occurs, it's actually part of the brain is kind of dying off, right?
Exactly. So 1.9 million neurons die every
Wow.
minute. So every minute.
So if it took you 15 minutes to get your husband's attention, I mean, at that whole time, your brain is struggling.
So I think that my the part of my brain that is dead is about the size of a walnut or a little bit bigger.
Well, and is there? I mean, and so the brain's pretty resilient. And did the doctors? Was there hope that the brain would compensate for the area that was bad and either regrow or shift, to a different area? I don't quite. I'm not a brain surgeon, so I have no idea. But
Yeah.
I did.
So they didn't say either way. So they
Okay.
weren't negative and they weren't positive.
Mm. And your friend, I remember in the book, from your friend's perception, you had tried to call her, she wasn't available, and then when she finally did get the message, um, it was kind of a shock to her system too, as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If I remember right in the book, she kind of felt like if I'd only answered that call, or if I'd only gotten to that call sooner, but I
Yeah.
don't think you can control that kind of
No.
thing.
No, you can't.
What and how long did you end up being in the hospital after that?
So I was in the hospital for 5 days. I went to the rehab hospital for 2 weeks.
Mm.
I had home health care for 6 weeks. I was off for 2 weeks, and then I was in outpatient care for a couple months. And then they said I was done. And I
Mhm.
went, I'm not done. So I hired a physical therapist, and she worked with me for a year to get me walking again.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you have sensation back in your legs now, or do you still
Yeah.
suffer from any of that? Because I know, excuse me, my grandmother suffered and from one, and although she recovered and felt as good as ever, she could not feel the sensation of heat in her arm, and I always thought that was, um, I was just kind of shocked by that the
Yeah.
brain it just it cut that part of her wasn't coming back.
Yeah. That's weird. So I have feeling in
Mhm.
my entire right side now, but I do have pain a little bit.
Okay.
Um, and the pain isn't much anymore. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And was there, thinking back of the whole ordeal and how it started, was there any early warning signs that, in hindsight were there but just were not known, or was it just completely, it happened and there was nothing to let you know other than maybe the headache and not feeling well?
So
um
yeah, I think that there was nothing to tell me I was going to have a stroke. So I had a carotid artery dissection, and 1 to 2% of people have this, and they have no idea what caused my stroke, other
So
than yeah.
yeah. And I will say this conversation is a little bit scary to me because we were just talking about how I've had a migraine for a couple days and a headache, and so I'm like, yeah, this is bad timing for my headache in this conversation. But maybe it's good because it's kind of got me hyper vigilant about getting that checked out. But
Please do. I mean,
yeah,
you never know.
yeah. And so, and how long did it take you? How long ago was this again that you had your stroke? What did you say? 7 years?
7 years, 7
7
years.
years. And how long did it take you to kind of feel like you were getting back to normal? And I don't know what normal is, but let's just say 90%. I mean, I imagine it was a long, slow process to get back there.
Yeah. So I have a couple of things that were different. So I had aphasia, and aphasia is a speech difficulty.
Okay.
So speech, and they say if you have aphasia and it lasts for more than 3 months, you probably have it for life. So I had aphasia for 3.5 years.
Okay.
And I got out of it because I had a doctor who is really awesome.
Okay.
And he actually tried a new therapy for him, which is neurofeedback. So I got my speech back to normal at 3 3/4 years, which is awesome for me.
Yeah.
So that's the longest I took for getting anything back. The other thing, like walking and stuff, it took me 1.5 years to actually be able to walk kind of correctly. So it looked off for physical therapists and stuff, but if you're a normal person on the street, you can't tell the difference. So nobody knows I had a stroke. But it was 3.5 years before my speech was back. And I would have a long sleep every now and then during my recovery. And after the long sleep, I'd realized that something new had come back, which again, I was really happy.
Yeah.
And my last long sleep was 3.5 years into the stroke. So I think about that time, I became kind of together again.
And when you say long sleep, you're meaning like a full night's rested sleep, or?
I mean, like I'd slept for 18 to 20 hours.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Well, and it's probably the body. I would imagine the body's recovering some of itself, or the brain, the mind at that point, keeping you rested. What, thinking back to, 3.5 years ago when, things started to trend upwards to today, in comparison, I mean, how is life for you today? Is it, you're able to do the things you want to do? And
I am. So one of the things that was hard was kayaking. And the first year I got in my kayak again, and I didn't go very far. And I veered off to the right because the left side is stronger.
right.
I was 5 years in when I went kayaking, and my husband said, "You looked awesome. It's like you never had the stroke."
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. And was it all, the recovery process itself, was it all traditional type medicine other than the one new therapy by the doctor, or did you have any kind of holistic healing or anything in there as
Yeah.
well that helped?
So I had holistic healing as well. So I have acupuncture, and I
Okay.
still have acupuncture. Um, I have, this is bad, but still see a chiropractor. And
Yeah.
they suggest that you don't see one, but
Really.
yeah. But my chiropractor, actually, I found him after the stroke, and he doesn't crack my back. He looks at the pressure points, and he touches me where I'm out and uses the pressure points to get me back into place. I don't know how it works, but it seems to work.
And I think there's always kind of been this little rift between medical doctors and chiropractors, at least as far as I can remember, because the chiropractor wants you to come see them before you go and get pain meds, and then the doctors don't want you to see the chiropractors. I see one fairly regularly, and I believe in what they do. But as far as what you're doing today, are you've got the book? When did you write the book? How long ago was that?
So I started writing on the first anniversary of my stroke,
Okay.
and I wrote 2 paragraphs. So again, it's a little bit odd because my right side didn't work the keyboard very well, so I deleted it a lot.
Mm.
But on top of that, I didn't remember how to spell words.
Okay.
Sometimes I didn't remember the word I was trying to get to. So I spent a lot of time on thesaurus.com
Yeah.
trying to figure out what I was really trying to say. So I started at year 1 and I finished it in 4.5 years.
Okay. Well, and I haven't been able to get through the entire book. I'm fairly slow when I read, so and I tend to have a bad habit of reading multiple books at the same time. I probably
Right.
need to stop that, but I really love how the book is set up because not only do I get to hear from you, but I also get to hear from your husband, and I get to hear from your friend, and there's these different perspectives, which really does a great job of painting the story,
Mhm.
and filling in those blanks, where like where maybe your memory ends and your husband's picks up and things like that. So what's the name of the book? Let's go ahead and throw that out there too.
So it's stroke forward.
Straightforward, yeah.
Mhm.
And what else are you doing today? Are you doing anything working with people or?
So I'm actually doing an audiobook
Okay.
of stroke forward, and it's harder than you think.
Yeah, I imagine.
And I'm also I'm a life and health coach now. So
Okay.
I find that's really fascinating. So
Yeah.
I am looking at stroke survivors and caregivers because those are the people I know. Um, I was going to speak at a stroke convention, but it turns out that they're postponing it again until next year because of COVID.
Yeah. COVID getting in the way
So
of everything.
yeah, but that's really kind of what's going on for me.
And as far as lifestyle changes, for you with, because of the stroke, and I mean, did your diet have to change? Did your lifestyle did you have to do things differently?
Yeah.
And what were some of those changes that you had to make?
So it was November of the year I had my stroke. So it was 2014. And I had my blood tested to
Mm.
see if I was allergic to anything. And the test came back, and I was allergic or actually sensitive to 50 things. I'm
Oh,
serious, 50. I
wow.
went,
Yeah. that you never knew you were allergic to.
Right. And I went, you have got to be kidding me. This has got to be somebody else. I'm sorry, but this is not,
Yeah.
this isn't me. And the doctor convinced me that it was. And so I said, great. So what can I eat? And he said, you can eat everything that's not on this list. Okay. So I'm allergic to dairy, eggs, gluten, soy. I mean, I'm allergic to everything.
So you
go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, so there was a big shift in what your diet looked like then.
Right.
After that.
Exactly. So I can drink coconut milk and that's it.
Mm.
So I tried the diet and I found out something really important. Every night I used to stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
And on the new diet, it went away. The
Really?
stuffiness went away.
Huh.
And I went for my 1-year anniversary, and the doctor put me in a CAT scan, and I had my carotid artery actually had blood flowing through it again. So apparently, the diet I was on took care of my inflammation, and it went away.
So I guess, in hearing that, it sounds like you could be allergic to things and not have an outward reaction, but inside things could be happening that you don't even realize.
Yeah.
And was the diet, the blood work, and trying to figure out the allergies, was that part of the stroke recovery, or was that just something that you felt like you needed to make a change in your life? So that's kind of where you started with it.
Well, it was like the doctor said, I think you should have your blood tested. And this is one of the doctors who is really out there. So I look at him and I go, okay, I trust you.
Yeah.
So if you think I need to test my blood, then go ahead. But I have been tested for allergies 3 times before. And every time they would stick me with the needle and just do a pinprick test. And they didn't see anything. And he said, that's not good enough. I'm going to test you and I have to draw blood. And I said, really? A needle again?
Enough's enough.
Yeah.
And so as far as your coaching goes now, so you're have you been speaking on this, or just other than the one time that it was canceled due to COVID, have you been getting out there and sharing your message in any other ways or anything like that?
Well, I've been on a few podcasts, so
Okay.
I have been sharing my message that way. I spoke a couple times before the COVID virus came forth. But, I was really looking forward to starting to speak again, because there's so many people that need to know the message that you have to try your hardest to get better.
Yeah. And when we think about, because I know I'm trying to think, throughout my life, I was aware of stroke and I knew some of the symptoms, but it doesn't seem like it's widely talked about as much as some other medical conditions. I almost kind of feel like it doesn't get enough recognition as, one of these things that could happen. Is there, in your experiences, not only going through it, but everything that you've learned since, is there any kind of like precautionary type changes that somebody should make in their life? Is there something that makes you more more apt to have a stroke, or is it really, because to me it just seems like that's what makes it so scary, is you could just be sitting there perfectly fine and then it happens.
Yeah.
But are there precautions that those of us that don't have the experience with it, we should be thinking about taking? Or
Yeah. So first off, you are so right on. So 25% of the people who have strokes are from prenatal up to the age of 65. And 75% of the people are older, clearly.
yeah,
So you can have a stroke at any time throughout your life, which is really scary.
yeah,
There are some things that you can do. So one is exercise. I hate to say it.
yeah. Some of us it's a little harder than others, but
Yeah. So you have to eat right.
yeah,
So you have to really watch your diet. You have to be really careful about how much alcohol you drink. So here's a really scary statistic. If you are a binge drinker, and so for men that's 5 drinks, for women it's 4 drinks in a 2-hour time limit, you are 39% more likely to have a stroke.
wow.
Yeah. So just think about it before you drink too much.
Yeah, that's scary to think, because I know people that enjoy, it's kind of how they end their evenings, and
Right.
and they drink, and it's like, um yeah, that's now it's like, oh my goodness, they
Yeah.
need to hear this as well.
Yeah.
But if somebody's listening to this podcast and they want to connect with you, whether it be to look into the coaching that you offer, or just want to learn more about what you've gone through and how you've recovered, are you out on social media? Do you have a website?
Yes. So my website is strokeforward.com. That's strokeforward.com. I am on social media, and my Facebook page is Stroke Forward.
Okay.
My Twitter page is stroke dash forward or underscore forward. So people can find me.
All right. Yeah, and that and all those links will be in the description. I guess I
Yeah.
always ask that, I ask that question on these shows, but I've already got the answer, because I get that from you beforehand. But so yeah, anybody listening, don't worry about trying to write anything down.
Yeah.
You'll see it in the description below. But how's life changed for your husband since this?
So he used to be an introvert,
Yeah.
and they say that you don't change. I think he did.
Yeah.
So he stands up and, well, first of all, he took really good care of me. And I'm so grateful for that. But he now says what he thinks. Most of the time he used to be quiet, but now he says, I don't really like this. And that's good to hear. But he also stands up and is more gregarious, which I
Okay.
think is also good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that in a couple situations where a spouse has, a serious, ailment, and I've seen changes in people as caretakers and whatnot as well. So I don't know why they say people don't change. I don't think you could go through some trauma like that, whether you suffer from the trauma or your, the spouse that is now going to be taking care of your significant other. But yeah, I don't think you can help but change
Yeah.
some areas of your life. And how has life changed for you? Do you live for the day? I mean, what has changed? What's different for you now than 7 years ago?
So I'm grateful for every day that I have. I am grateful for what we have. I don't think about what we don't have, which
Mm,
is very different. I think about my husband, my family, my friends, the people around us, and then I think about other things like work.
Okay. You
But
put the you
no,
put
go ahead.
the big rocks before the little rocks, like the family gratitude and the family friends come first, and then you have time for work,
Yep,
and you're still out there kayaking and doing all that good stuff, right?
absolutely.
Great. Were you getting ready to say something? I'm sorry, I kind of stepped over you there.
So I used to be a workaholic,
Mm,
and that's completely changed. Work is important,
yeah.
but my husband must come first. My family must come first. Work is after them. Maybe not much after, but it's after them.
And so, do you see this as a blessing now?
I
Um,
sure do.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's. I would imagine there was a point in time early on where you questioned why this had to happen, and or were you just like, hey, this is happening for a reason, and I'm going to use this to change not only my life but the life of anyone out there that you know deals with this.
So I didn't think about it in a negative way. I thought about it like, okay, this is where I am, and I don't like this. So what can I do to get better?
Yeah.
Do I wish it had never happened to me? Yeah, kind of. But on the other hand, I think I'm a much better person than I was. It makes you think about life a lot clearer.
Yeah. Well, and that's good that you kind of had, I mean, having the mindset of, okay, this is happening and I've got to deal with it, and I want to deal with it in a way that I recover. I think that's good that you had that approach because for myself, some of the bigger events in my life, I found, I kind of start off questioning why
Yeah.
and being angry about it, which
Mhm.
serves no good. Uh,
Right.
Eventually it all comes out and I say, okay, this truly was a blessing in disguise, even though the universe, God, whomever could have, I go, well, you could have done it a little bit differently than that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's understood. But yeah, I think, that's it's good that you're getting back to 100% and your message is getting out there. This is definitely something that I think needs to be more on the radar than it already is. And because it's scary, and my grandmother suffered from one, and that
Mm.
actually I think she had a couple, and
Yeah.
you don't like hearing that news from your family saying, hey, this has happened. But
Yeah. And
as
I'm
we
so, oh, go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead. Nope. Oh, you.
So I'm sorry that she had a stroke because it's heartbreaking, actually.
Yeah. And I guess with the as we think now, moving forward, what does life hold for you uh, in the next 5, 10 years? What are you planning on doing?
Well, I'm planning on coaching a lot.
Yeah.
I am thinking about writing a book, actually, a cookbook.
Okay.
I think I want to be on TED, so do a TED talk. I am curious about the insurance companies and how they're going to transition after COVID because
Mm,
they need to do something different. So I think my next 5 to 10 years are going to be very busy.
yeah. Well, and I'm glad to hear that because I think it could be easy to give up sometimes and just kind of get lost in in an illness. But yeah, I think TED would be an amazing place to share your story,
Yeah,
and it would get out to large numbers of audience. So I would love to see you on a TED talk. I watch those videos quite often, so I think you
yeah,
have an amazing story, and a terrifying story, but it is amazing. Um, because you have been able to recover from that. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing it, and I know others listening will as well.
Well, thank you, Brian.
As we get to a point of wrapping up, if there was anything that from this conversation that, if let's say if the audience heard the whole thing, but they don't take anything away but one, piece of advice, or, what would be that one thing that if they didn't take away anything else, what would be the one thing you would want everybody listening to take away from your story?
Okay, so I have two things. Is that okay?
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, so if you're a stroke survivor, you need to be sure that you do what you need to do every single day. And if you're a caregiver, you need to make sure that you take care of yourself first. So you need to eat right, you need to exercise, you need to take time off for yourself, and then you need to take care of your stroke survivor. And the reason I say that is because if you take care of the stroke survivor and don't look at yourself, you're going to wear out, and then you will have nothing left to give.
Yeah, that's great advice, because it's easy to forget about ourselves. And
Yeah.
Anytime I hear advice like that, I always think about the airlines. When they say if the oxygen mask drop, you put it on yourself before you put it on your kids or anybody. You put it on yourself, because it's not going to do you much good if you're not taking care of yourself. You may not be there to take care of others. So, well, I thank you for being on the show. I thank you for sharing your story, and certainly would encourage all our listeners to go out and check out the book. Like I said, we'll have all the links for everything in the description below. But it is a good book, even though I haven't gotten through it all yet. But I definitely like the approach that you took with it, and I think there's a lot to learn from that. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hang tight. I'm gonna have a little post-show wrap up with you. So.